Welcome to the SDR Accelerator podcast. According to recent industry data, the average on target earnings for small medium business account executives is $4,500 higher per month than that of SDRs. And what's crazy about that is LinkedIn is full of SDRs stuck in their roles for 2, 3, even 4+ years. And my goal is to help SDRs make the jump to an AE role as fast as possible. And so on the show, I interview successful account executives to uncover how they made the leap from SDR to AE, sharing the right moves to make and things to avoid, all to help you land that promotion in under 18 months. Today, we're diving into a success story with Axel Lloyd. He's actually a former colleague of mine as an SDR at MongoDB for just 9 months. He made a lateral move as an SDR at LaunchDarkly, and then after just 8 months there, has promoted to a corporate account executive at LaunchDarkly. How's it going today, Axel?
Hey, Thomas. Great, man. How you doing?
I'm,
Good to be here.
I'm good, yeah. Likewise. First question I have for you, what made you get into tech sales?
Yeah, I think, a couple things. Obviously, earning potential, big one. I'm sure, everyone says that. But for me, it was really a second career. I came kind of non-traditional BDR background. I kind of cut my teeth in the nonprofit fundraising world. That's where I got my first taste of kind of carrying a quota. Definitely, it's definitely significantly different than quota carrying in a tech sales role. But that's where I got a taste of like having a number, setting goals, and trying to achieve them and exceed them. And I really actually took to it when I started in fundraising. It was really just a job for me, and I actually took to it. And I turned like 30 years old, and I looked back at what I was doing. I'd grown pretty. I grown pretty quickly in the fundraising world. I was a director of major gifts, but I felt like I was kind of capped out. I wasn't learning a whole lot,
Mm-hmm.
and I really wasn't being challenged significantly. So I think the biggest thing there was moving into like the technology sales role presented the opportunity for some fresh challenges, significant growth
Mm-hmm.
professionally, not just in earning potential. And so I didn't want to look back on my career and wish that it was something that I had tried and a
Mm-hmm.
risk that I had taken. So I kind of took the plunge, and I'm very glad that I did.
Yeah, that's great, and I will agree. It just feels like in tech sales, it feels like there's always a new thing to be learning, and so there's obviously the financial incentive, but also that feeling of like, man, I can keep climbing the ranks and keep developing my skill set is definitely appealing. Going into, I guess, and maybe that ties into it, but like, I'm curious what actually, that helps me explain what got you into tech sales, but what drives you today? Like, what's your why?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think something that a lot of folks probably think about pretty frequently. And I don't know if I have a fully defined why, Thomas, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest. I'm definitely not searching for my life's meaning through tech sales. However, like I think my why is similar to what a lot of really driven, successful folks who go into tech sales have, which it's just like an intrinsic motivation, something that can't really be taught. I think it's a lot of the same things that you find with like, I don't know, endurance athletes, people who
Mm-hmm.
run marathons, people who like lifting heavy weights. It's like, why do you do it? Well, it feels good to challenge myself, and I can't see myself not doing that. It feels a lot
Mm-hmm.
better doing that than not, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's just that internal motor, and it's definitely something that that you need to have, I think, to be pretty successful in this role. And what's really cool about technology sales and sales in general is that you have that commission-based structure for like,
Mm-hmm.
you bring that extra motor you have, and you can get rewarded for it. I don't know, kind of like funny little metaphor. Sisyphus.
I do not.
Okay, he's it's like that Greek myth, pushing the boulder up. He's destined to continue pushing the boulder up the mountain
Mm-hmm.
for the rest of his life, and then just as for eternity, and then just as soon as he gets the boulder to the top, about to get the boulder to the precipice, it rolls all the way back down the hill again, and he has to
So
start over and keep
eternal
pushing up.
pushing.
Right, and so it's kind of fun, not to mix metaphors, but like I feel like
Yeah.
every QBR you're presenting, you're going over your quarterly attainment, and then the joke is like, all right, that was a great quarter, everybody, nice
Mm-hmm.
job, we hit like 120%. Now we're back down to zero.
Hmm.
great. Like that,
Hmm.
and that's sales, and like it's just how it is, and like you got to
Yeah.
embrace it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty cool.
So you kind of have a sick sort of enjoyment of the constant stress basically,
I
and
think so. I
never
think
getting to the
so.
top of the mountaintop. Okay, no, that's helpful. That's cool. Okay, so I want to go through basically going through how you jump from SDR to AE. And so, just first question on that is, at what point did you decide you wanted to be an AE in tech sales? Was that before you were an SDR even, and you're like, hey, I want to become an AE, and so I'm gonna join as an SDR somewhere to do that, or you didn't know, and then you just joined as an SDR, and then like figured out like which route you wanted to go, as opposed to like CSM or
Yeah,
something like that.
for sure. Um, it was so I knew that I wanted to be an AE because it was like closest to like what I was already doing as like an individual contributor, major gift fundraising, having my
Hmm.
own bag. Um, And yeah, so the idea was never to like get into tech sales and like maybe go into CSM or any of that stuff. I definitely had a choice, I think, coming from a more non-traditional background, being a little bit older than maybe
Hmm.
some other BDRs coming out fresh out of college. Uh, I had the opportunity, I think, to maybe start at like a smaller company, maybe a startup, and maybe go directly into an AE role.
Hmm.
And I looking back on it, I think I probably could have pulled it off.
Hmm.
I am actually very glad that I didn't, and that was a conscious choice I made. I wanted to, if I was going to make this big radical transition in life and work, I wanted to do it right, and
Hmm.
I thought I would be setting myself up for success by going into the BDR world, going into the trenches there, really exercising that like outbound pipeline generating muscle,
Hmm.
and just yeah, learning things from the ground up to set myself up for a longer term career in the space.
Absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. And then and so just to clarify, you said there was another org you could have joined maybe as an SDR, or were you saying as an AE?
I as an AE, and no,
I see.
I didn't go that route. I chose consciously not to. I was just saying, in retrospect, I think I probably could have pulled it off, but I'm
Gotcha.
glad that I didn't.
Gotcha. And so instead you decided to go to MongoDB to kind of learn that basically PG skill set, or I guess that like outbound skill set. Walk me through, I guess, yeah, like why MongoDB initially, and then, obviously you jumped over to LaunchDarkly instead of trying to promote internally at Mongo. So like, I guess if you could touch on both those things.
Sure. Mongo has a very well-deserved a well-deserved reputation in the space about being a best-in-class sales org, from like learning how to do sales the quote-unquote right way. Um, And I mean, you can go into, I encourage anyone watching this podcast, when you're thinking about your career, go into repview.com, check out all orgs. They have a bunch of different metrics you can check out. Professional development is one of them.
Mhm.
And MongoDB is like at the very, top right of the quadrant there, like 98th percentile in professional development. It's well earned. They flew me out to Dublin for all their new hires to do their boot camp, really rigorous training. Um, yeah, and like I mean, it's a difficult job too. I mean, they have very high expectations, I think, for everybody that's hired there. It's a pretty
Mhm.
rigorous interview process. Um, and yeah, I look back on my time at MongoDB very fondly because they let me they let me into the space, and
Yeah.
so for that I'm always going to be grateful. And I learned so much that I'm going to carry with me, the rest of my
100%.
career, especially from the
100%.
like outbounding skill set. And I guess just one other thing there that kind of speaks to the transition. Uh, it helped me. MongoDB helped me realize, like especially as a BDR, getting on the phones, feeling very out of my depth, as I'm sure maybe a lot of folks in the technical SaaS space feel.
Mhm.
Uh, speaking to these engineering personas, realizing that like, hey, you don't need to get caught up in the technicalities of it. Like, these are people. We're about solving problems. Understand people's problems and how we solve them, and speak to those, and that's how you have a conversation. And so they did a great job of teaching that. And when I saw the opportunity at LaunchDarkly, I saw something very similar. It
Mhm.
starts with product market fit. For all salespeople out there looking at orgs, that's another thing you want to look at. You can be the fastest talking, most regimented salesperson in the world, but if you're selling vaporware, you're gonna have a very hard time to find success. And so LaunchDarkly is in that very same space, has that same reputation that Mongo has for product market fit. It's a need to have. Not going to get too much into it, but it's a need to have for that same developer persona. And it was an opportunity to join a Series D startup, like not necessarily like something like, hey, we have no sales methodology, we have no RevOps, we have no systems, we have no tech stack. Like, hey, we're here. We're trying, we see a path to an IPO. Here's the opportunity. Can you help us get there? And it felt like an exciting org and opportunity to join.
That makes sense. It was Series C at the time?
No, it's Series D, and it still is.
Okay. And but are there plans to IPO probably sometime in the next few years? Who knows?
Yeah, that's the goal. That's the goal.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's really it's really insightful. I guess I think this is one reason I was really excited to talk to you is I would imagine if you're like been an SDR for 6-7 months, it can be really, or even longer, it can be really difficult to know when should I just try to stick it out here versus make a lateral move, like same role, basically as an SDR, make a lateral move to a different company to actually achieve your goals faster, right? Because I mean, getting the AE title and maybe arguably you could have done it as at Mongo as well, but I guess like if you're someone who's like kind of stuck in that sense of like, should I stick it out here or jump ship? And I know there's gonna be a lot of nuance to every person's situation, but I guess like, what's your best advice to figure out like how would you recommend trying to figure out staying the course versus joining a different org where you can maybe launch your career sooner?
Man, it's a great question. You're right. There's got to be no clear-cut answer. I do think that folks should be. Yeah, you should keep in mind that the grass is not always greener. So take a beat, do your research before you make any rash decisions. I think this happens to. I think just thinking about the audience here. Maybe every I don't know. It's different for every org, but promotion opportunities arise, and maybe there's 2 spots and there's 5 folks eligible for it, and 2 people get the nod and 3 people don't. Like that's pretty gut punching. And I think you really need to assess you need to assess your own situation unique to your company and your team, and use that to identify like, hey, does it make sense to jump ship or not? And like, I think for a lot of people, it's not going to make sense to make a lateral BDR to BDR move. Frankly, and that was definitely something that I said in my interview process too. As somebody who I
LaunchDarkly.
But finding success at Mongo, having some success at Mongo, having a decent reputation there built up through a short amount of time, but through my body of work, it was like, hey, if I leave Mongo now and join your org, like this, no one knows Axel Lloyd at MongoDB except for MongoDB people. And it looks from the outside looking in like I'm another like BDR that couldn't cut it and had to jump to another org. And so, having, being very frank in those conversations about any opportunity, if you are going to move laterally, any opportunity, like what the actual opportunity is for you to join, and like, hey, you want to become an AE? Like, here's my timeline I'm expecting, and having those very frank, direct conversations during the hiring process. And then I'd say at a certain point, if you're a BDR and you've been passed up for some promotions, I think you could certainly start looking, if you've been a BDR for like 15 months, 2 years, being like, okay, like maybe it's time that I try to go get like an AE role at a smaller company or a lateral company. Don't be afraid to assess that. But if you got a good thing going, don't always think the grass is greener.
I think that makes sense. And I think even from chatting with you, it sounds like there needs to be a level of trust with who if you're going to jump ship, who you're jumping to. You need to, like you just said, like do your homework and really understand if the people who are promising you things are like people of their word, and are actually going to follow through with their promises. And it sounds like, I mean, even with Kyle, I think is he the VP?
Yeah, he's the VP of I don't know his real title, but yeah, the Corp AE organization
Yeah,
and the BDR organization roll up to him, and so that's the path, right?
yeah,
BDR in his org to corporate account executive in his org, and we were having those conversations early
yeah.
on.
And he seems to be a man of integrity, so that's it definitely like makes his word mean more.
Right.
So that's great. And then I guess one quick question is like, what is your day to day? I get as an SDR, what did your day to day look like at LaunchDarkly? Just a brief overview of like, you know, how many accounts were in your book? What was your primary method of
Mm,
reaching out to them? Who were the people you were targeting in those accounts?
sure. So yeah, I really only had like 2 full quarters here as a BDR, and it was a mixed bag. And by that I mean I was in 2 different patches.
Hmm.
When I first joined, I was in strategic accounts, similar to a lot of the motion at MongoDB.
Hmm.
Had a mix of current customers for my AEs versus net new greenfield accounts. Um, yeah, and
How many
that was a
total
new
accounts
motion.
in
Yeah,
around?
let's think. Yeah. Probably I supported 2 AEs. It was probably like 16 accounts,
Okay.
8 each,
Yeah.
for that patch. That was cool. That was a new thing for me because at Mongo I was total net new business acquisition. So it
Yeah.
was all outbound. That's all I knew. So I enjoyed definitely talking to current customers and working
Hmm.
expansion conversations. And then I got moved to enterprise acquisition team newly formed that they made at LaunchDarkly and wanted BDR support for. And so yeah, I mean, it comes with the territory and being in tech sales, right? Things
Yeah.
always change, corporate priorities always change. You got to be ready to adapt. I think for BDRs out there, uh, building your personal brand, like being, you know, being a yes man, being somebody who goes with who goes with the flow and like willing to like kind of step up to the plate, even if that means like, oh man, all my AE relationships are being transferred, all
Hmm.
my new territory patches being transferred, like do the call there. For enterprise acquisition, that was supporting a couple AEs, all greenfield accounts, probably like 100. They probably each had like 100 accounts in their book, but like we're focused only on the top, the top 30.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I mean that's for me. I'm cold calling for greenfield accounts. Like I'm not finding any success setting meetings with email for
Hmm.
cold accounts. I am hammering the phones and LinkedIn connecting as I'm calling people, having
Hmm.
their LinkedIn up while I'm talking to them, and booking meetings that way.
Nice. How many calls were you making per day on average, if you could remember?
Yeah, let's see. I mean, probably probably like around 75.
Okay. Yeah, that's quite a bit.
Um, yeah,
It's great in quality context, I'm sure. That's great. And then I guess walk me through the actual process of what it's like to promote at LaunchDarkly.
sure.
What metrics did you need to be hitting? And then like what was the interview process like, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think this goes to having doing your homework, and I wish I had done more.
Hmm.
It when I joined Mongo, and like it's about doing your homework, understanding what you need to do. What is the next step actually? Like,
Hmm.
is it a corporate AE? Okay, great. What does that look like? What does the compensation look like for that? Is it aligned with what you want? Okay, great. What do I need to get there? Okay, in the case of LaunchDarkly, it was 2 quarters of 100% or more attainment on your sales accepted opportunities. So you book a meeting, it runs for the rep, everyone agrees that this is a real opportunity, it flips. That was the metric. So I mean, nothing crazy, pretty clear cut. You could hit 80% in one quarter and then 120% the next quarter, and that would qualify you. That enables you to have the conversation with sales leadership. Of course, all of this is contingent on headcount,
Hmm.
and that's why it's important to place your bets on organizations that you feel
Yeah.
bullish on, right?
Yeah.
Another important thing about doing your research. And then from there, it was like even though it was internal, it was like a 4-step process.
Wow.
So a couple like panel interviews, then one like more like formal, like, hey, here's your territory. Go through it as if you're an account executive. Who are you targeting and why? Shows how you think exercise,
Hmm.
and then like a mock discovery, and finally like a little 30-minute interview with the with the CRO to finish it off.
Dang, man. Yeah, I I get it kind of, but I think it's so brutal how I mean, just like when internal promos are just these massive processes. But I get it.
Yeah,
Like
I will.
there's these people who maybe don't know you that well and they want to see how your mind works. But it's just like, oh my
Yeah,
goodness, the fact that 2 months of attainment is just the bare minimum is always like, it's a grind for sure.
yeah, I will say just for folks listening to this, that's like this is like what you put on a piece of paper, and like this is what it takes to be eligible for promotion, and then to also
Yeah.
get the promotion, right? But then all the unsaid stuff, building your brand,
Yep.
leading up to that, making sure that like when you are up for that, you're like, okay, great, I'm going to hit that 100% over 2 quarters, check. But
Hmm.
like, how am I going to make it so these people know who I am and I'm
Yeah.
not just a face and a name when I go across the sales manager's desk?
Hmm.
So that just goes into, I, I mean, how are you showing visibility on team threads? What if you're in a dispersed workforce? How are you showing up on Slack? How are you showing up in team meetings? What are you
Hmm.
offering back to the community of salespeople? How are you more than just like a quote unquote any other BDR?
Yeah, makes sense. I think that's definitely even I didn't know you in person. I mean, you worked in a different office, but I will attest to the fact that even at MongoDB, which is probably a bigger org, like everybody know who Axel was because you were always blowing up the slacks, but with good stuff. So definitely like building your brand in a positive way at all times is the kind of way to be interviewing before the interview. Makes sense. And then going into my next question, I guess, is like specifically as well, I guess it was probably pretty competitive. I would imagine this interview process, but like as a specifically at LaunchDarkly where you promoted, like what do you think that you did differently um, than your peers, and or what would other people say that you might be uniquely good at, right? In order
Hmm.
to basically that was able to make you what allowed you to shortcut that promotion so quickly, or I should say get that promotion so quickly.
Sure. I think a big thing, and I noticed this at Mongo too, like
Hmm.
something I did differently than my peers. And at LaunchDarkly, it was the same thing.
Hmm.
It was I cold called from the floor,
Hmm.
which I don't know. To me, it just seemed like what you did, but I noticed that like some. I mean, not to say I was the only one who did that at
Hmm.
Mongo or the only person who did that at LaunchDarkly. That's not the case, but like more folks than not chose not to cold call from the floor at
Hmm.
both places. And I mean, talking about building visibility, making yourself heard, literally, like you're
Hmm.
literally putting in the work. Not only so it's doing those things, but then I mean, it's giving you ability, especially as a BDR, right? And we're
Hmm.
we're just here. We're all improving. That's the goal. Nobody's perfect yet.
Hmm.
No, nobody ever will be.
Yep.
And I think one of the joys about being, especially if you have the opportunity to go into an office, you can be coached live on the floor. Hopefully, you're surrounded by people that like managers or other maybe some AEs.
Hmm.
That you can get that coaching on the floor by actually cold calling. Whereas if you
Hmm.
go off into a closet and do it, you're not really getting that. Nobody's hearing you do the work, and you're not getting that feedback. So
Yeah.
cold calling, from the floor, that's something I did differently, and I
Yeah.
think people will say I'm yeah, cold calling. I will say for me, like that's definitely my
Strong
strongest
suit.
outbound activity.
Yeah. No, that's actually a really good tip because one thing that I always harp on is like it's good to have this positive spotlight, but like if you brag about yourself, like that comes across as really like
Dick.
distasteful. But I think like being in a place where others are seeing your success and you're not like calling attention to yourself, you're just like doing your regular job, but it's in a way where others can like actually see it. I think that actually that's a really great like actionable tip that I think, for any SDRs who aren't fully remote, and there's so many benefits to being in an office and being able to do it on the floor, like and you'll just like be comfortable, like you'll learn to like you'll feel really awkward at first calling on the floor, but I think like
Yeah,
learning to be like comfortable and like not perfect in front of other people, and then yeah, having wins that other people get to hear seems like a really good tip. I love that. Okay, and next question. If you could go back in time, thinking either MongoDB or before or even LaunchDarkly, what would you have done differently, if anything? And that could be either like, joining one org or not, or even just like what you would have done differently within those orgs, like starting out, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. Like, what would you have done differently while you're at Mongo? What would you have done sooner or at LaunchDarkly? Or, yeah, or like, would you have joined LaunchDarkly right away instead of Mongo? Like, I guess what could you have done differently, if anything?
Are you gonna hate me if I tell you I wouldn't change anything?
No, no.
I yeah, I think I'm very grateful for every step I've taken and everything that's happened that like got me to this point.
Hmm.
And I'd say, sometimes I joke around, especially like I'm not like the oldest BDR in the world, right?
Hmm.
And I want to encourage anybody listening to this. I guess if you're already a BDR, I'm glad you took the step. I think just the upside of this career is really it's mind-boggling, I think. And like a lot of people, I think, who and maybe for some BDRs out there who like you stepped into a BDR role right out of college, it's it's pretty cool what the upside of this career, what it
Yeah.
offers for folks. And I think a lot of people, I can say this, actually I know this because I work with some folks who came straight out of college into a BDR role, and like it's no fault against them, but like they don't have the same perspective that a lot of people
Yeah.
who got into it a little bit later have.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty cool opportunity we have here. And I always joke, so got kind of going to the thrust of your question. It's like, oh man, where would I be? Like Kyle Acey, like, right? He's like not old, Thomas. He's like
Yeah.
35, maybe. I don't really
Yeah.
know. Like he got into sales like super early, and like look at him. He's like amazing. He deserves everything he's
Crushing
ever
it.
gotten.
Yeah.
Um, and I always joke that like, whoa, man, where would I be like if I'd started right out of
Hmm.
college? Like, how did I not know this was a thing? Like, you hear all about these like tech sales golden years that I like wasn't
Yeah.
there for. It would
In
have
the
been perfect for
2020, yeah,
me.
2020, 21. Yeah.
Right. I was like, that was prime working years for me,
Yeah.
right? But it's like
Yeah.
I am I think that if you have that perspective, I think that could actually it can help you from being as successful as you could be in a sales role specifically, where I think you got to have a short memory and be able to move on
Yeah.
and regret. I mean, yeah, not
Regret
like
nothing.
don't regret, don't
Yeah.
look back, like just get better and improve. And so I'm grateful for everything that led me to this point, and I think it helped me be successful, find this success in these like first 18 months.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. How old are you, by the way?
32.
Okay, I'm 30. I just turned 30, so I'm right
Nice.
there with you. But definitely, I lack a lot of sympathy when SDRs who are straight out of college are like, dang, I haven't gotten like promoted yet. I'm like, I've been an SDR for like, you know, already a year and a half, and I'm like, dang, y'all, I wish I could go back in time and not rack up my grad school debt. But anyways,
Right.
definitely add some perspective. Okay, last question, and I think cold calling on the floor is actually would be counted as one of these. But like, what were the highest leverage activities you did as an SDR? Um, Basically like things that didn't maybe require a ton of effort on your end, or even if they did require a lot of effort, had just a massive payout for you in the long run, if that makes sense. So like and specifically things that people listening to this could implement today or this week that, yeah, they would just see massive output for the input they put into it.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, cold calling from the floor, right? I think part of that's an activity. I think one thing that is overlooked, and I've learned this at Mongo, and it's something I brought to LaunchDarkly, and it's something that no one at LaunchDarkly was doing before, and it was all that I knew because it's what I did at Mongo, and it's something called creating your PG plan for the week,
Hmm.
and it's literally like, okay, like what's your goal for the week?
Hmm.
If that's going to be meeting set, like directly tied to your metrics for success, like, okay, great, meeting set, like I'm going to set 5 meetings. Okay, I'm putting that on paper, holding it accountable. And like, that's the bar I'm setting for myself. So like,
Hmm.
it's better to shoot higher and then maybe fail. If I set a goal for 2, there's no way I'm going to set 5. If I set a goal for 5, I'm
Yeah.
much more likely to actually hit 5. So putting that out and then actually like, okay, great. Like, what does that mean? All right, well,
Hmm.
here's the accounts I'm targeting.
Hmm.
Here are some of the specific teams or a couple of the really high ICP personas at these companies that I'm targeting. Here's an example messaging I wouldn't say that it doesn't involve work, Thomas, but
Mhm.
it helps you actually like know what the hell you're like. Okay, great, you're cold calling from the floor. Like, to not sound like an idiot, you have to like know a little bit about why you're calling, a
Yeah.
little bit about this company, what your messaging is generically that you can adapt. Um, so, and like it also, so it's good for you holding yourself accountable, but
Mhm.
then it gives yourself visibility, right? You're sending it to your AEs, but then you CC your manager,
Mhm.
and it just is, it's like very much like professionalizing what we're doing out there. I feel like people always call themselves, or the BDR role is called condescendingly, cold call monkeys, and like there, that's a certain way to view the job, but like
Mhm.
it's there's a lot way, it's there's a lot of ways that that your job is way more than that if you do it well, and like
Mhm.
creating a plan is a big part of that.
Mhm. Mhm. Makes a lot of sense. Um, just curious, like when do you do that? Do you like typically like to do that plan on a Friday, on a Monday, or when do you typically try to like do that work?
The idea is to create your plan of the week on Fridays,
Mhm.
and then also like on that Friday you can kind of recap what you did from like the
Mhm.
previous PG plan of the week.
Mhm.
That's how I like to do it. Some people, I've also broken it up where like Friday's my recap and
Mhm.
Monday is like my PG plan of the week.
Mhm.
It really just depends. I don't think,
Yeah.
but yeah, it really, and honestly, like another cool thing about it for me, it's like there's so much stuff that's hurled at you throughout the week, internal meetings,
Mhm.
customer
Mhm.
calls, this, that, and the other. And like having that plan actually written out, like helps you
Mhm.
actually stay focused and like go back on Wednesday and be like, where am I at? What was I planning on doing? Oh, here's these 5 accounts. I've only hit 2 of them. Like, great. Now I remember what I was planning on doing. And like this helps me stay on track.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna give myself a shameless plug on my YouTube channel that I'm putting out, SDR Accelerator. I actually created a video basically walking through like a document that I created for pretty much borrowed for how to recap basically your week, and like a document to prep the future week, or sorry, your pipeline plan for the future week, and then how you did this past week. And I will say I did that specifically starting off as an SDR and like CCing my managers and everyone, and like basically copying from this Excel spreadsheet into an email and CCing all the stakeholders. And that actually just gained, speaking of internal credibility, like being able to show that, hey, I actually exceeded the goal I had for myself, and this is what I'm planning on doing next week. That actually uh, played a big role in myself in getting my promotion, because the people who advocated for me after that and seeing that, like specifically in the enterprise, um, helped me get that promotion. So that's a great way to kind of like put a spotlight on yourself without like being too arrogant, because you're just basically telling people what you're doing
Yeah, I'm doing my
instead of
job.
being like, look how
Yes.
awesome I am. So, and it just
100%, man.
and it just shows a level of professionalism, and like I think as a way to distinguish yourself as well uh from other SDRs, just because like you're holding yourself accountable, and people respect that. So
Absolutely.
that's really good. I'm gonna throw another random question at you, Axel, or do you have to go? You can be honest with me.
See. No, no, I'm good for another like 5 minutes.
Okay, I'll just throw this one on you. I'm just curious, just because I don't know how much you interact with Kyle, but I see he's always posting about AI and these ChatGPT prompts, and just got my mind thinking a lot about the future of, just because, I don't know how often you interact with him, but I'm sure you're benefiting a lot from, how his deep thinking and stuff. But just from what you're hearing at LaunchDarkly, and just from what you're seeing of the overall trends uh, in tech sales, how do you think, how do I ask this? My biggest fear, I think, is just like AI replacing jobs, right? And just like from not just sales, but across anything in technology. And I think it's going to be happening. But like, I guess, how can you leverage AI, Axel, and or how can you make sure that it doesn't take your job? It's a big question.
That's no, I don't know if you saw did you see the CEO or founder of Anthropic, what he came out and said
No,
yesterday
no,
or today?
I did not.
No, he came out very strongly, very publicly, I think yesterday, talking about, he's like, yo, he's like AI is going to replace like 20% of jobs, probably like
At least.
like white collar, low level jobs. Like they're going to be replaced, and like people aren't talking about this enough. They're not taking it seriously enough.
Mhm.
And so I completely agree. I don't know. I agree with you. It's a well founded fear.
Mhm.
I know we've been kind of talking about this. Every big
Mhm.
I don't know, technological revelation has made people go chicken little, sky is falling, and it's all worked out. But I think this could be a little different, and I
Mhm.
agree that a lot of jobs are going to be replaced. I think for sales specifically, we're blessed that, no matter how many times folks say they don't want to talk to salespeople and they hate talking to salespeople, like people don't want to buy from people. People like trust is always going to be the baseline of any business deal,
Mhm.
and you can't build trust through your two AI agents talking to each other.
Yeah.
I don't think that sales is. I don't think sales is in jeopardy of being replaced. I don't necessarily even think the BDR role is, because I think that
Mhm.
top of pipeline is. So yes, you're going to need to be an AI augmented BDR, AI augmented salesperson,
Mhm.
so you do your job better.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I mean, if you're not using AI today for your job, like I don't know
What
what
you're
you've been
doing? Yeah.
doing,
Yeah. Yeah.
frankly. Yeah. So I mean, I I guess is your question like what can we do to avoid being replaced, or how am I using
Yeah, I
AI?
guess like that's a good question. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't ask you very specific questions. So I'm sorry about that. I guess I'll give you a specific one then. What is one way an SDR, like maybe you did as an SDR or that you see SDRs in your org doing today, that you can really leverage AI to make you better at your job?
Hmm.
What's the
Um,
highest leverage activity that you recommend using AI for as an SDR?
yeah, I mean, I think you got to be using it for your account planning and your messaging, like that, like to actually be not sound like a BS like AI generic messaging, like sending your value prop out to all of these teams, all of these, like here's how we help developer teams, and it's like all these three different things, and it's like, well, how is that relevant to their business whatsoever?
Hmm.
You can really, it's it's crazy how even in the last 6 months how strong these models have become, and you can actually train your model. You can create
Hmm.
your own little Axel's account planning chat GPT, and like
Hmm.
you feed it specific instructions, Thomas, like, and like, hey, here's how I want to structure my account planning. I'm really focused in on the three whys, like why now, why anything, why LaunchDarkly. Here's
Hmm.
what that means. Okay, now these are the accounts I'm attacking. Like I want you to, and then you coach it through, so then you
Hmm.
can just feed them your accounts. And especially like with new ChatGPT deep research, that was a new
Hmm.
model that was introduced recently. It can really do some amazing
Fabulous
fact
work.
finding
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So you should be doing that. You should be building your own ChatGPT specific for like account planning,
Yeah.
at the very minimum.
That makes sense. I think like and I think the ability to break down complex concepts into simple terms is so powerful. And like specifically, we just don't have an excuse to not understand our customer's business and our point of view. So I think that's what used to take hours, you can probably do in minutes now. So that's pretty pretty helpful. And so thank you for that. And sorry to throw a random question at you, Axel.
No, you're good.
Oh, cool.
I think about it too, man. I think about this AI job loss thing too.
And I'm like, how can I like it's not going away, but so how can we leverage it to make us um, irreplaceable as opposed to having it replace us? So
Exactly.
cool, man. Well, thank you so much for the time. I know you got to bounce. I know it's a work day for you, but yeah, hope you have a great rest of your week, and I'm sure we'll chat.
All right. Have a great rest of your paternity leave, man. Congratulations.
Thank you. All right, talk to you later.
Thank you so much for checking out the SDR Accelerator podcast. If you're interested in receiving personalized guidance to help implement what was discussed on the episode, feel free to check out the SDR Accelerator School community. You'll get personalized sessions to help you map out your career and life goals, weekly Q&A sessions, workshops, AI consulting, accountability groups, and access to some of these account executives I'm interviewing, as well as myself. You can check out the link in the description below and hope to see you soon.